He has some anger issues here, some real pent up tension and emotion. There is, he struggles with telling the truth. Although he has some diplomacy skills, he would make an exceptional politician. He has remarkable timing abilities. Look at the angle of time there on the back of his thumb. He's an old soul. And I say that because of the fate line as well as where it's coming from, and just how low down his thumb is. He's probably lived many, many lives. Now, you've asked me lots of questions when it comes to Jin. In this palm reading, I'm going to be looking at his future, his love life, and some hidden traits we see in his hands. Thank you all so much for joining me. My name is Pisces Palmist, and this is my Sunday case study for Jin of BTS. Thank you all so much for your comments and your questions regarding this palm reading prior to me reading his hands. And I'm going to do my best to answer all of these. And someone mentioned that he has had tendon repair and he has hypermobility. And that does obviously distort some findings. Had I not known that, and I would have assumed that he has hypermobility from just looking at his fingers. I get emails from people all around the world all the time, and I see this sort of thing quite a lot. I see it more in Indian and Pakistani people for some reason. So I would say that Jin is an analytical hand type, one of 12 hand types that I commonly refer to, although there is an element of practicality there as well. He certainly fits more into the analytical hand type. The hand itself, the palm is rectangular and the fingers are long. He has the eye of Ganesh on his thumb here. This is said to be someone who has essentially been a good person in a previous life. And so they've kind of come back with some good karma on their side. Now, the thumb being so low set is said to be a sign of someone who has had many previous lives. I mean, I don't know what everyone's thoughts are on reincarnation. Personally, I believe we've all lived many, many lives, but this person in particular has lived a great deal, in my opinion. And the fate line as well, when you look at where it kind of comes from here, it is really interesting for me because it comes from a very low um, portion of the palm, known as Pluto. Most people don't refer to this part of the palm here. This heel of the hand here is known as Pluto, and it's to do with ancestral memory. It's to do with ancestral recall, past life memories. Pluto being so far away is a planet that affects us from afar, and because when we see elements on the hand that are affecting us from this area, it's very cosmic, it's very unforeseeable. There's no way to kind of mitigate or know or understand the forces that are at play. And when you look here, you can see something of this is almost Pluto here having this cosmic effect, this astrological effect on his life at a very early stage in his life, kind of kick starting his destiny, his purpose in his life at this time. And this is at very early age indeed. Now, this could be a very good or very bad thing. And in my opinion, this is a very bad thing because when we see here, look at the island, very low down on the hand. And now we're looking at the left hand. So this is very internal. So it affected him on a very emotional, psychological way. And I suspect this has created some um, deep rooted insecurities and possibly feelings about himself, how he perceives himself in quite a negative way. And the reason why I say that are for two reasons. Firstly, the heart line here, notice how the heart line, it reaches over and it looks to strike at the lifeline at a very young age. And I'm talking about 4 years old or so. And that's something that I'm seeing here. It kind of corroborates here. This looks about the age of 4 years old. Something happened that was very unforeseeable, very unfortunate in his life that affected him very internally, damaging his sense of himself in some way. And the reason, again, why I'm coming back around to that conclusion is because the fingers here, notice how Jupiter, it's just a bit too short. It's just a bit too low set. It doesn't quite reach past the halfway mark of Saturn. It's not a tremendous inferiority complex. We see the same thing in sugars. Palms Min Yoongi, if you want to check out his palm reading, I've read his palm as well. But this isn't as bad. It's not as a crippling um, sense of self, not as a damaged ego. It's just a little bit reduced. There is a strong feeling about himself in terms of what he should be doing and his sense of purpose. And again, that's tied to his previous past life experiences and that kind of crossing over into this life and having an effect and influencing him. There's a feeling here that um he's essentially he's come back with a purpose, unfinished business, and this is exactly what we see here with a fate line that kind of stems from so low down on the palm, right in the heel of Pluto. And that's exactly what this is said to be. Someone who's come back with unfinished business in Indian palmistry. And the reason why I say he has a strong sense of purpose about himself, so there's not strong self-esteem, but there is a strong idea of what he should be doing. And maybe the two are connected. And the reason why I say that is because look at Jupiter. It just about at the tip, it leans towards the thumb. I don't know if you can see it. It's quite subtle. There are other images where you can see this a bit more clearly. In this hand here, in this hand, same hand, in this image, you can see Jupiter leaning over towards the thumb. I don't want to take too much away from it. Obviously, he is double jointed and he has had tendon surgery. And I think that is actually, I think it's more connected with the right hand. And what this means is his feelings of himself, his purpose, his will, his drive, his determination, is directly connected with himself. His personality is directly connected with thoughts and feelings around himself. I get the sense he's very wise. There's a philosophical aspect to a very analytical hand here. There is something of an intellectual kind of look to this hand as well, the intellectual hand type. It's certainly mostly analytical, but it's very introspective. He's very philosophical. He has excellent diplomacy skills. He's kind of the diplomat of the group. He's got excellent tact. He's probably very good at facilitating actually really difficult discussions. Now, one person asked me prior to me making this video, who in the group would he get on best with? That's actually quite a complex question because I've kind of got to cross-reference all the hands here. I don't know BTS. I'm only able to extract information from what I see in the hands. So from what I've learned, from what I've read in their hands, and I've not read J-Hope's hands yet. I'll be doing his next Sunday. But from what I can see, I think there's probably aspects of everyone that he gets on well with. He's wise enough to know that we all have strengths and weaknesses, and he's intelligent enough. He has those interpersonal skills enough to recognize and kind of connect with those elements of people that he has that connection with, that chemistry with. JK and Taehyung are probably those who among the group who he has the best chemistry with. I would say I'm not extremely confident about that analysis, to be honest. One thing I do see about his hands, which strike me as somewhat odd, is he's got a relationship line here. He's got several relationship lines on the left hand. Now, these aren't necessarily romantic relationships. These are feelings that he develops for people and how they impact him on an internal level, because again, we're looking at the left hand. The left hand shows us all of the internal, the thoughts, feelings, insecurities, desires, aspirations, fears, and of course, love, and even, lust. And then we see here there's a relationship, maybe late 20s, um, and it's kind of short. It's not the clearest of images here. The relationship line itself is short. That doesn't mean that it's a short-lived relationship, but it means the impact internally is not as strong as something like you'd expect to see in marriage. The second relationship begins at around about, it looks to me, I would say early 30s. We can see that this doesn't, the feelings about this at least aren't all that positive. Now, Jin is 32. I had to pause to Google that. I'm not sure if he is in this relationship right now. It's not feeling as positive as it could. When a relationship line reaches towards the heart line, it's kind of asking the heart, the emotions, for guidance, for support. And it's in some way pulling us down. It's being some sort of a burden. It's not extreme. It's not terrible. It just might be stressful at the moment. And also, I really should mention that these minor lines in the hand change all the time. And I've seen these change quite literally overnight, drastically. So it's not as though, things are doomed. However, there is a relationship in his future. And it's interesting that we see this on the left hand because this is internal. It's not external. It's not environmental or physical. However, it does appear to be destined for him that he's going to meet the true love of his life. I would say at late 30s, maybe even 40 years old. And we can see here just how strong this relationship is. This actually will be, in my opinion, marriage. I believe he will get married maybe anywhere between 38 to 41. That's my kind of prediction here for Jin. I think he will have one child as well. There are two family rings on the hand. Here's one, and you can see one child just here. Now, this is the possibility. This is the potential for it. Again, it's the left hand, so it's odd that we see that here. And we also see another family ring right here, and we see the same evidence right here as well, kind of corroborating, backing it up. And that's what palmistry is all about. It's about connecting the dots between the circumstantial clues to provide something of a bit more of an accurate diagnosis. One of my big questions here is what happened at the age of 4? What was it that created this insecurity, this hurt, this disappointment, this damage, this pain, and potentially even trauma? There's certainly an emotional upheaval here, and it appears in some way destined to have happened, and sometimes. Um, the stars align and things happen, and that's that, and there's nothing we can do or say, and it's just meant to for some reason. We just don't understand it. But what I will say is the fate line here, weighed down by a tremendous kind of struggle, a painful period in his life, has provided him with the perspective that he can now use as a tool in later life. And he can absolutely understand, manage, and deal with um, things in later life with a kind of wisdom and a very kind of level-headed perspective, if you like. He has those tools in his toolbox to really cope with any kind of issue that might come up in later life responsibly. And so I see quite a lot of that in his hand: responsibility, perspective, diplomacy, wisdom. He's an old soul. So it could be that, maybe the planets had this idea in mind to enable and create something of a rudder, if you like, an anchor to root him and guide him essentially in later life, because he has a purpose. He has some kind of strong understanding, some strong connection and feeling uh, around that purpose. But there are some anger issues. There are some um, built up feelings of tension here in this hand. And I see that because actually, a lot like JK's hand, there is a great sense of um, force in this hand, and it's almost as though the fingers are a little bit too thin for the hand. So there's a kind of an overflowing of force and energy, and if he's not careful, he's going to struggle with his own um, let's say motivation, drive, determination, because it's not so much emotions, it's not so much anger. It's like if his motivation is misguided, if it's misplaced, then he's going to at times it's going to come out as anger. That's what's going to happen, because anger, after all, is the great motivator. The wasting here of the second phalanx of the thumb, in conjunction with the long but bending Mercury finger, because the two are important when we have to weigh those up together. If we saw a short or a very low set Mercury finger that was bent or bending, then it would create some more negative aspects of what this means. Now, he is certainly able to spin a story, if you like, change the narrative. He's highly diplomatic. And this is partly why I say he'd make an exceptional politician because he's very good at changing the narrative, at selling a point of view in order um, to get the best out of the situation. Now, I'm not saying he's manipulative, but he has the skills to be if he was so inclined, if he didn't have morals, which he does have. And I know that because I can see the heartline here reaching very clearly right up in between Saturn and Jupiter. He has a good, strong sense of right and wrong. Saturn also leans towards Apollo, which shows that he is conscious about his environment and his work ethic and his place in that environment. His Apollo finger is very long. So he is actually absolutely seeking glory and reputation. These things really matter to him. He's probably quite vain as well. Public opinion really matters to him, a lot like sugar, in fact. And so probably in the same way that sugar would, really, he would really appreciate having someone, his friends or his ideal partner, being someone that doesn't care what others think, because that's quite refreshing to have around when you are, you don't have a choice really in the kind of career that he's in. He's constantly having to think about, and he's always thinking about what others think about him. The spatulate nature of Apollo, a lot like all of BTS, really, their um, sense of creativity is highly active. It's all about the action. It's singing, it's dancing in particular. It's how they express themselves through their physicality, their bodies, their image, their body language. These are things that they are very clued up in, and there's a great amount of activity in this area. But there's also a great appreciation for beauty and aesthetics, a great understanding of these things as well. And I suspect that, being that we've got such an active tip of Apollo with such a pronounced angle of proficiency and or angle of time, this is someone who is really gifted with their hands. He's not only very introspective, very intelligent, very analytical, philosophical, but he's also gifted with his hands. He's probably got some gifts here in terms of, carpentry, something like that. He's really able to craft with his hands and create things of beauty with his hands. Although I've mentioned there are some anger issues here, I don't think this is towards people. I think this is towards himself. As I say, we've got Jupiter leaning in towards the self. The strong feelings of his purpose and his self, and he's introspective. I think he takes things out on himself. I think he's angry when he does it in likely behind closed doors. That's how he expresses his anger. And I think also, I don't think he's going to get angry with people so much as inanimate objects. He gets frustrated when things don't work, that sort of thing. I don't feel this anger is. I think he's quite gets frustrated with his himself in certain ways. He is something of a team player, and this is partly why I believe his temperament is a lot around keeping people together. He's kind of the healer of the group in terms of conversation, whenever there's conflicts and arguments, he's really, really good at negotiating, at resolving conflict. He's a superb communicator. And like I say, he has those abilities to, um, you know, allow people to see certain perspectives, to spin narratives, if you like, to manipulate, even to deceive. But that's not him. He has those skills, but that's not who he is. He's someone who genuinely cares about others, and he's the glue, if you like. He wants everyone to get along. He wants to keep everything ticking along smoothly, and he wants to work with others. He's quite a sociable person. Unlike a lot of the rest of the members of BTS, his lifeline. Look at and this is actually quite common. The straightness of it. This shows that purpose, that boldness, that courage, bravery. He's on a course, and there's not going to be any stopping him. But it swings out further. It increases the size, the capacity of Venus, the Mount of Venus. I don't see that so much on other members of BTS. He is more sociable. He's more engaged, perhaps with the fans. He's more willing to put himself out there. Now, that's not to say that he's a risk taker because he's not. He's certainly cautious. Something. He's got this really balanced approach when it comes to issues or just life in general. He's skeptical, but at the same time, he's open-minded. He's got this really balanced, rational point of view, this is a remarkably um, intelligent individual because he's really able to weigh things up. It's not like he has this kind of he never assumes, he never prejudges. He's really willing to investigate, and this is just a classic trait of an analytical hand. He'd make a great detective. He'd probably make a great palmist, in fact. A logical one, anyway. He's not nearly as intuitive as Tai Xiang. And you can check out his palm reading. He's got extremely psychic hands. Something I do find interesting about his lifeline, just before I move on, notice how it wraps it, although it does fire outwards towards Neptune, towards the center of the right at the base, right at the wrist, it then begins to curve itself right around. It tucks its way around right underneath Venus. It's like he comes full circle. And there is a theme here. There is a theme here because in some respects, remember when I mentioned that at the age of 4, there was a moment in his life that was kind of unforeseeable. It was unfortunate. It was impactful, and it shaped his life, his worldview, and it really was one of those kind of I don't know how to put it, almighty ingredients, detrimental life events that really shaped his character and who he is and how he sees the world, and maybe even set him on some sort of course. Maybe some sort of door closed, but another opened, and that was the door that he was always meant to walk through. I don't know. But there is a feeling here that he's going to revisit that feeling, that place in his life later on. He's going to revisit that. He's going to come full circle, and he's going to do that at the age of 50. He's going to revisit. There's going to be some sort of maybe it's a family reunion. Maybe it was I'm just kind of assuming there because if it happened at 4, there's got to be it's got to have been close family around at the time and involved in some way and knew what happened and understand what he went through. There's going to be some revisitation of his experience early on in life at the age of 50. So that leads me to believe that 46, I'm just kind of going off on a bit of a tangent in my mind here, 46 years there's this is 50 is a karmic year and 4 was a karmic year. So 46 years apart in my mind, there's that's not a coincidence. Something may well happen at the age of 46 for him as well. It's not necessarily a karmic year, it could be, but there's probably something going to happen there as well. And when I look at the fate line at that age, there does seem to be something. It could be divorce. I don't know. When I look here, it's very faint, but there does appear to be, and it could be that this grows stronger. If you notice the marriage line, it points at this area. There is a feeling here of again anger. It could be, and if this connects with this will be divorce, and it will be at this age, which looks up to me about the age of 46. So that could be on the cards, but don't quote me on that one. Other things I've mentioned in terms of prediction, I'm much more certain about. Again, the hands show us a view of things to come, and that view is ever changing. Our future circumstances are ever changing, and that's because our present circumstances are ever changing. So the lines in our hands change all the time. The lines of coma victims change all the time. Contrary to popular opinion, the lines are not there as a result of external influences at all. It's entirely internal and highly cosmic. So at the age of 50 or so, he's going to travel. He's going to travel, and it could be that he travels back home or something like that. Maybe at that point in his life, he has worked away for a long time and there's some sort of family reunion. I don't see death in the family at that time, but there's a reason to go back home. Whatever it is, there's a revisitation of this feeling, and maybe there's a can of worms that needs opening up here. I don't know, but the reason why the Venus, forgive me, the lifeline tucks its way around the Venus mount really tightly here is because he's going to live and die. He's going to die in his native homeland. He's not going to settle anywhere. He's not going to relocate anywhere and live in a completely foreign country and die in that country. He's going to die where he was born or close to that area. I believe I have some sort of idea as to when he will die as well, but I'm not going to be revealing that information. Now, someone asked me, will he continue as a solo performer or work as well as with BTS? I don't know, to be perfectly honest. There's a great many things I can see in the hand, but I'm not sure I can really get to the bottom of that one. What I will say, and this is interesting, he's 32 in his age, in his life right now. Okay, so that is about here on the fate line. That's interesting. It's interesting because if you look closely, you can see a secondary fate line diverting and trying to create its own path. So this leads me to believe that just around the corner for him, at this time, he's on a different path to the one he has been on for quite some time. There's a new path for him emerging at this time, and this is something that is potentially going to take over this primary role that he's been on. This role he's been on for so long is going to change, and it's going to, it's absolutely still going to be in the limelight. He's not going to step away from it. Um, it's, he's going through a really stressful time at the moment, though. Look at this lifeline here. Look at the island on this lifeline, and this is at this age. Yeah, it's about now in his life. So here, this is about 35 right here, and there is something going on right here. If you look closely, there's a line that reaches right over, and it crosses all areas of his life. Now, this is huge because it is some kind of, how do I put it? It's like the dirty laundry is being aired. It's like there's some sort of scandal, maybe, not necessarily that he's committed, that he's involved in some way, and it's for all to see, and it affects his life, his destiny, his mental health, his emotions. It's going to affect his relationship. This aspect of the hand is right up here in both Apollo and Mercury. It's how we reveal ourselves to the world. Now, if a line is crossing all areas of this, comes from inside of Venus in particular, it's going to affect the family as well, which isn't what I see just yet. And it is faint, so it might not happen, but it looks like it's developing. So there's this kind of feeling here that there's going to be something here that's potentially connected to a relationship or someone that he knows or has feelings for, and they're going to make problems for him. It's not necessarily that it's going to be a relationship. It's not necessarily an affair, but it's kind of something like that. And it could be at the age of 35. And the interesting thing is that at 35, his fate line, it's a lot more faint at the time. So it's showing there's an inability to pursue his purpose in life from this time. It's showing a difficulty to make money at that time. It's like he gets caught up in something and he has to kind of put work on the back burner for a bit. That's kind of what I'm seeing. And again, this is evidence that corroborates what I'm seeing. So, unfortunately for Jin, at the moment, things are really tough for him. He's really stressed out. It's a lump in the throat right now. He's severely stressed out at the moment, and I would say borderline depressed at the moment. Um, why is this? What is he going through at the moment that's so different? What's going on in his life? You tell me. Like I say, I don't know these guys. You do. I can only really extract from what I see in their hands. And with your help, in fact, it's very possible to kind of really get to the bottom of what we're seeing here. And this has happened before, with a lot of your comments. You kind of said, well, this person's doing this right now, or, they're in the military. Is he in the military right now? Okay, I just Googled it. No is the answer, and I'm sure a lot of you know that. Maybe that's what we're seeing here. Maybe this period of time was significantly stressful. Maybe he's just kind of come out of it just now. I mean, if so, he's kind of in this period right here. It looks like, if he has just come out of it, this is just around the corner. This is literally a couple of years away from it. It could be 34, something like that. It looks like that to me anyway. It's around that 34, 35 mark. So in a couple of years, there's going to be something that comes out. Everyone knows about it, affects all areas of his life, and it's going to impede his path, his purpose at this time. But I do think that the military for him was a really it was a struggle. He really struggled there. He was not happy at all. So someone asked me, will he carry on his solo performance? Will he continue working with BTS? This, or will he act? Now, this here, it's still coming from a place of Luna. Um, it's entirely possible that he switches his career and he becomes an actor. It's entirely possible. What I would like to see is his headline for that would be the writer's fork. And all actors, method actors anyway, have this. Psychologists and, of course, writers have this an ability to see things from more than one perspective. Now, he already kind of has this in other signs in his hand. If he had this writer's fork as well, this would make him an exceptional actor. I mentioned earlier that he's a team player, and the reason why is because these two fingers, the tips of them are so close together. He likes to have people around him, but his idea of himself is kind of far removed from um, what he feels others think of him. His idea of himself is very different to what others think of him, and he's very aware of that. The kind of the wasting that we see of every middle phalanx of all of the fingers here is very common in the hands of people who have many brothers and sisters. It's very common in the hands of people who feel kind of hard done by in terms of their childhood and the lack of input that they had. Um, it's common in people who feel that they were neglected essentially by their parents. Now, it's likely that in fact he had a lot of brothers and sisters, or maybe his parents just didn't have the time there to be for him emotionally speaking. Again, we're looking at the left hand, and that's what's we kind of have to take into account here. Really, I don't have any clear pictures of his right hands. There's nothing. This isn't clear at all. Um, He has something of a girdle of Venus here. At least it tries to be one. And it's basically what we're seeing here is an overlapping kind of heart line. This partial girdle here takes over from where the heart line is, and it creates this extra sensitivity about him. He has a really strong ability to manage people. Um, he would have made a good lawyer, politician. He could have been a great many things. He's very talented. He's very intelligent. He's very skillful, and he's great with people. He's got a great understanding of people. He would make a good psychologist, particularly if he had that writer's fork as well. And it makes sense that he has that kind of acting background because psychology and acting are absolutely linked. You need to have a good understanding of the human condition. And one person asked me, are the knots in his hands accentuated a sign of dishonesty? No, in my opinion, they're not. They are in some way blockages, though. They're blockages because it slows down the information that is received and it makes him more analytical. That's what it is. It's a key trait of the analytical hand type. It's a blockage because it slows down that thought process. It makes him less instinctive, but it makes him more analytical. The Mercury finger, however, bending does make him slightly dishonest, but the length of it, because it's so long, thankfully, levens that out. It negates that dishonesty a little bit. And also his temperament, his overall good nature and understanding, I think levels that out as well somewhat. He has the potential, absolutely, to deceive, but it's not in his nature, if that makes sense. So that is my palm reading for Jin of BTS. Please do let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear your Comments, please do drop them below. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do subscribe. And if you would like to find out more and get exclusive insights into palmistry and other aspects on this channel, please do consider becoming a member as well. Next Sunday, I will be reading the hands of J-Hope of BTS. That will be my last palm reading, essentially on BTS on a Sunday. However, I still will be making palm reading videos about them. Let me know who you'd like me to read the hands of. I'm loving all of your suggestions, and I've kind of compiled the list already, but I would like to hear more from you. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.